brother made my life hell. From a young age, I always lived in the shadow of my younger brother, David. Throughout our childhood, David relentlessly bullied me with cruel words and aggressive actions, while our parents brushed it off as childish behavior and ignored it. As we grew older, I hoped things would change. But David never abandoned his selfish and destructive ways. The deepest betrayal came from the person I trusted most, Karen, my wife. I discovered that David had been secretly involved with Karen, and as a result, she became pregnant. The shock felt like a dagger thrust straight into my heart, shattering my entire world. I immediately decided to divorce Karen and sever all ties with David. Our parents, who had long spoiled David, could no longer defend him once the truth came out. Ashamed, they declared they were cutting him off completely and left their entire inheritance to me. Despite receiving the inheritance, I felt no joy. The losses within my heart were far greater. I moved to another city, determined to start a new life, far away from those painful memories. Through it all, I learned that family isn't always the safe haven we believe it to be. And sometimes, to protect ourselves, we must have the strength to cut off toxic relationships, even when they are bound by blood. After 7 years of marriage, my life with Harry was fairly peaceful, except for one constant source of trouble, Kayla, my sister-in-law. Kayla was always envious, constantly trying to sabotage our happiness with all kinds of malicious tricks, from bringing up Harry's ex-girlfriends to deliberately causing trouble at our wedding. Although I had forgiven her many times, I always kept my distance from her. When I became pregnant with our second child, my husband and I decided to announce the joyful news at Harry's birthday party. Kayla showed up unusually friendly and even brought me a plate of food. Luckily, I noticed that the plate contained shrimp, a food I'm severely allergic to, so I refused to eat it. Unexpectedly, Kayla's husband, Jamie, accidentally ate the dish and immediately suffered food poisoning, having to be rushed to the hospital. When the police investigated, security camera footage clearly showed that Kayla had deliberately offered me the dangerous plate. As a result, Kayla was arrested. Jamie filed for divorce, and the entire family turned their backs on her. Although deeply hurt by everything that had happened, I also felt a sense of relief because the truth had finally come to light. From that moment on, I was determined to protect my little family, stay away from toxic people, and cherish the precious things I have. 3 years ago, my life plunged into a dark abyss because of a cruel accusation from the very sister I loved most, Gemma. We had grown up close, two little girls bound together in a small house in Ohio, where our parents showered us both with love. But as we grew older, the distance between Gemma and me widened. She was always the pride of the family, brilliant, beautiful, and successful. And I, just the ordinary child, quietly living under the overwhelming shadow of my sister. Everything shattered one seemingly ordinary afternoon. Gemma screamed from the kitchen accusing me of stealing her precious engagement ring. I was stunned. I swore with everything I had that I hadn't even touched it. But my parents didn't need to hear an explanation. The look of disappointment on my father's face, the sobs from my mother, Gemma's cold glare. Together, they cast me out of that home as if I was some loathsome stranger. No evidence, no questions asked, just judgment. Because I, the failure, was the easiest one to blame. They ransacked my room, desperately searching for proof that didn't exist. When they found nothing, they twisted the story, pointing to my small savings and concluding that I must have sold the ring for cash. Within 2 short days, I was kicked out, carrying nothing but a heartbreak too deep for words. For 3 long years, I scraped by, sleeping on couches, working any job I could find just to survive. I rebuilt my life from the ashes, step by step, without a single word from my family. I made myself a promise. I would never forgive them. Then one day, my father called, his voice trembling. The ring had been found, lodged deep inside the kitchen garbage disposal, hidden all along. The truth came too late, cutting deeper than any betrayal. My parents begged me to come home. Gemma sobbed her apologies. But how could I ever forget the feeling of being cast into darkness by the very people who were supposed to love me most? I stood at a crossroads. Forgive and return, or keep walking the path I had painfully carved out for myself. Anger and heartbreak are not easily erased. I chose the second road. I allowed minimal contact, brief check-ins, polite conversations. But I refused to go back to being the discarded one. Now, I live free, no longer seeking anyone's approval. They lost me, forever. That Thanksgiving, my life took a turn from which there was no return. I, Sarah, the invisible child, in the eyes of my family, had quietly built my own career, founding a jewelry appraisal company and amassing a fortune of $12 million without anyone ever knowing. For years, I sat silently through family dinners, enduring their mocking laughter about my tiny profession, suffering their pitying looks and cruel comparisons to my perfect younger sister, Rachel. But then, the truth came out in a way no one could have ever predicted. While I had carelessly left my laptop open in the living room, Rachel, nosy and desperate to humiliate me, snuck in and opened it, hoping to find something to shame me in front of the family. Instead of the humiliation she sought, the entire room fell silent as they stared at the screen. A bank account with over $12 million, contracts worth hundreds of thousands, and profit reports beyond their wildest imaginations. The air was taut, ready to snap. My mother laughed at first, in disbelief. Then her face turned crimson with rage. She screamed across the dining table, "You have all this money, and you let this family suffer because of Rachel? You owe us," Rachel sobbed, demanding I share the fortune, because she deserved it more. Even my father roared, accusing me of being an ungrateful daughter. For the first time in my life, I stood up, looked them square in the eye, and said, I owe none of you anything. Everything I have, I earned myself. I walked out, leaving behind the people who had abandoned me long ago, and this time I swore I would never return. After the explosive events of Thanksgiving, I thought my family would quietly back off. But no, the nightmare was only just beginning. Within a single night, my phone blew up with dozens of missed calls and hundreds of messages, overflowing with words that were a twisted mix of sweetness and threats. My mother pleaded, Do you have any idea how much this family needs the money? Rachel needs to buy a house. Your father and I need to retire. You can't be this selfish. Rachel was even more brazen. At the very least, you should give me $2 million to start my new life. I stayed silent. There was no longer any guilt or regret inside me. Only a deep, seething anger mixed with bitter sorrow. All those years, they had never once asked how I was living, what I needed. Now, they saw me as nothing more than a walking vault. The final blow came on Monday morning. I walked into my office and froze. There, seated in the reception area, were my parents and Rachel, waiting for me. This time, there was no pretense. They issued their demand plainly. Either you share your money now, or this family cuts you off for good. I smiled coldly. No need for ultimatums. As of today, this family no longer exists to me. Right in front of them, I pulled out my phone, cancelled on all the monthly payments I had been sending, and turned my back, leaving behind a collection of stunned, speechless faces. After the day I firmly cut all ties, I thought it was all over. But I had underestimated the greed and deceit of my family. Within just a few days, social media began buzzing with posts hinting at a heartless, ungrateful family member. Vague accusations about someone hoarding wealth while abandoning their struggling family. It wasn't hard to guess who was behind it. My mother and Rachel. Rachel even shamelessly made public posts, lamenting about the pain of being betrayed by my own sister, and describing how she was struggling to plan her dream wedding without enough money. Messages from distant relatives, people whose faces I could barely recall, came flooding in. Some scolded me, others mocked me, and quite a few blatantly asked for money, throwing around phrases like, family should share with each other. With each message, the anger inside me grew stronger. All those years, I had quietly supported them. All those years, I endured their contempt and sneers. And now, for the sake of money, they trampled on my dignity, painting me as the villain in a story they crafted themselves. One evening, sitting alone in my new apartment, gazing out at the glittering city lights, I felt something strange rising within me, a feeling that was both painful and liberating. They had finally stripped off the mask of a loving family that I had clung to for so long. Now the truth was plain to see. They never loved me. They only loved what they could take from me. I made a decision. No rebuttals, no justifications. I would let them talk, let them perform, let them drown in their own lies. As for me, I chose silence. I chose freedom. I poured my energy into expanding my company, traveled the world, and built relationships with people who valued me for who I truly was, not for the balance in my bank account. Each day that passed, I felt like I was being reborn. No more heavy family dinners filled with judgmental stares. No more midnight calls demanding money. No more contempt masked under fake virtue. Now I live for myself. And the most beautiful part is, for the first time in my life, I no longer need anyone's approval. This freedom, though paid for with pain, is worth every single scar. My life took a different turn the moment I decided to let go of the expectations placed on me by my family. At first, an overwhelming emptiness consumed me. During holidays and celebrations, my heart would ache seeing others gathered warmly with their parents and siblings. But slowly, I came to realize that absence didn't make me weaker. It made me stronger. I poured my heart into my work, growing my own company and achieving successes I once didn't even dare to dream of. New friends, people who knew nothing of my past, accepted me with the purest sincerity. I no longer had to play the role of the daughter who had to earn love. No longer had to mold myself into the version my family demanded. I was simply myself, free, resilient, and proud. There are afternoons when I sit in my sunlit apartment beside the man who loves and understands me more deeply than anyone ever has, and I silently give thanks to myself. Gratitude for having had the courage to walk away, to refuse conditional love, and to choose peace for my own soul. I no longer crave praise from my parents, nor seek approval from my family. My success, my happiness, they are the clearest proof that I have won. Not against my family, but against the past that once held me captive. Looking back on the journey I've traveled, I realized that sometimes losing the approval of your family can be the sweetest gift life could ever offer. Without those days of abandonment, without those moments of collapsing under the weight of disappointment, I might never have learned how to stand on my own, how to truly love myself. Family was once my greatest source of pain, but they also, unknowingly, became the catalyst that propelled me beyond invisible limits. They may never understand me. They may forever see me as the failure of the family. But that no longer matters. I have built a world for myself, a world where no one holds the right to define my worth but me. True happiness doesn't lie in compliments, nor in approving glances. Happiness is waking up every morning, knowing that I'm living a life I chose, built with my own two hands and my unwavering heart. Maybe I will never be the pride of my parents, but one thing is certain: I am the pride of myself.